let me begin with the approach that the new government, the new administration of Joe Biden has begun with, and then maybe some suggestions to that. What I think this new group is doing is getting away from singling out Central and Eastern Europe as a special place. I mean, there was the effort, for example, by the Trump administration to kind of pay special attention to Poland, or there were some of the issues that came up, say, in the Western Balkans, where Ambassador Grinnell was talking with Kosovo and Serbia especially. So if we take this whole part of Europe, say the eastern half of Europe, I think what the new group will do is they will focus less on how Eastern and Central Europe is different and try to integrate Eastern and Central Europe into broader topics. I think that this is good and bad. The good part is that the Americans will focus on rebuilding the multilateral ties with Europe. They will focus on on Brussels, and to an extent, Paris and London and Berlin. This could be difficult for the Central and Eastern Europeans because there could be too much of a focus on the institutions of the EU and NATO and less on the specific problems of the East. The good news is that this is an opportunity for Central and Eastern Europe to take part in a broader agenda: climate change, pandemic, digital revolution, trade, things of this sort. That is, in a way, it's a normalization. It's not a word we like to use in the Czech Republic so much, but a normalization of Central and Eastern Europe as part of Europe. And so this is an opportunity, if you will, for Czechs, Poles, Hungarians, Romanians, even Western Balkan countries to take part in broader multilateral efforts to deal with issues that really matter. Transnational issues, not only like the pandemic, but migration. International issues, not only like trade, but questions about finance and the relationship with China. The difficult part about this will be, and this is where my suggestion comes in, we shouldn't forget that there are unique and specific challenges for the countries in the region. For example, the Baltic states still have difficulties that come from Russia, and we shouldn't ignore that. We still have the development of democratic norms in places like Poland and Hungary that we can't turn away from. These are difficult problems having to do with populism and modern society. Similarly, for the Western Balkans, we can't forget that until these countries are integrated as they should be into the Western European institutions, they're still going to have problems like huge brain drain and not reaching their potential economically and being susceptible to the challenges that come from Russia, say, and China, or even Turkey. So the good news is it's an opportunity for Central and Eastern Europe to participate in a global agenda, which I think is healthy. The bad news is there are still specific projects we shouldn't forget about, and I do fear that there might be that problem. So my advice to the Americans would be focus not only on the big issues, but on the specific ones, and likewise to the Central and Eastern Europeans, participate in the big issues, but remind the Americans there is unfinished business. I think that the idea, if I understand correctly from people like Tony Blinken and Toria Nuland and the new leadership for the foreign policy of the United States, I think the issue here is America has to realize, or is coming to the point where it realizes it can't go alone. And many of us, people like me, I have believed this for a long time, but I think this is becoming a mainstream idea that America cannot deal with the issues that it finds important unless it works and learns to work better with its allies. It's one of the best potential, let's say, value-added elements of American policy to build alliances, not only with Europe, but also, say, with friends in the Pacific and friends in Asia, et cetera. If that is the case, you've got to make sure that your friends are strong. You can't just say, you take care of things and help us. You've got to do what you can to contribute to their own strength. So, for example, if you really want Europe to be strong, it's not only a question of having good transatlantic trade relationships, but it's also important to have good internal European trade relationships, economic growth. The best example I can think of this is that on the very complicated issue of digital governance, it's not just a question of transatlantic issues, it's a question of the cultures within Europe coming to an agreement on the future of the digital revolution so that all of Europe is at least coherent There won't be total agreement, but stronger when it works with the United States if the United States is faced with a challenge, for example, from China. So the US should care because it needs strong allies. And strong allies, this is not a question that the United States decides who is strong and just waves its hand and makes it happen. We learned in Iraq that doesn't work that way. Rather, what we have to do is, as Tony, I think Blinken is showing, we have to listen. We have to come up with a common agenda and then figure out how we can strengthen both sides. It sounds a little bit kumbaya, let's all love each other. We know that's not the case, but it's kind of the approach you have to take before you can get to the difficult issues to really talk about them and then to try to figure out how you then leverage the strength of both sides so that you have a true multilateral effort to try to spread, let's call it, Western interests and values.